Update. Mom asked me to cancel my wedding because Golden's sister would be hurt, so I uninvited them. Original post. I-31 female had been planning my wedding with my long-term boyfriend fiance for over a year now. All the reservations were done 5 to 6 months back because we wanted to have the wedding on a specific day in December, which happens to be a holiday season. Now, the thing is, my mom is not very happy that I was planning an extravagant wedding for myself because my sister was left at the altar by her fiance a few months back, and my wedding would hurt her. First of all, my wedding was not at all close to being called extravagant. My fiance and I are frugal and we don't overspend on unnecessary things. The wedding is quite inexpensive with 50 guests, including close family and friends. There is no pre-wedding bash or bachelorette party. It's just a wedding followed by a modest lunch. Secondly, we are planning our wedding way before my sister planned to get hitched. Her wedding failure has nothing to do with ours. Besides, everyone, including my mom and sister, knew that we were planning our wedding this December, but I don't know why they decided to create a scene at the last moment. My sister is 3 years elder to me, and this is her second wedding. Her first marriage lasted for 2 years and they got separated amicably. She had been single since then. Last Christmas, my fiance proposed to me for marriage. We were initially planning for a summer wedding, but a summer month later, he got a short project overseas, so we postponed the wedding to this December. Since then, we've been planning it bit by bit. I hate to admit this, but I think my sister hurried her way into a second marriage because of me. She had just started seeing this guy when we announced our wedding last year. They had no plans for a wedding yet, but a few weeks later, I got to know that they were getting married. It sounded very weird to me, like marrying someone within a few months of knowing. Out of concern, I asked her if she was sure about this guy because marriage is a big thing, at least for me. She got defensive and said that not everyone is able to hatch a long-term relationship. It was a very sarcastic comment, but I let it slide. She never had a steady boyfriend. I think the longest relationship she had was for a year, with whom she married first and then got divorced after 2 years. I'm not saying 1 year is not enough for knowing your partner, but after one failed marriage, one should be cautious while making another move. This guy she had known for barely 5 to 6 months, and she was up for another wedding. Anyway, it was her choice, and I respected that and didn't interfere further. They had planned for an intimate church wedding with a handful of people. I think it was less than 20. There were just 3 people from the groom's side on the guest list. He said his parents lived in a different country and would not be able to make it on such short notice. So from his side, there were 2 friends and 1 colleague. I think it was his manager, not sure though. However, on the wedding day, none of them turned up, including the groom. We kept waiting at the church. My sister and my parents kept calling him, but he didn't show up. Later, he dropped her a text that he couldn't marry her because he wasn't sure yet. My sister tried to calm him down and suggested that they continue with the relationship and later take a call on the marriage, but he ghosted her. That dude was in his early 20s, less than 25. Again, I'm not generalizing it, but you know how the early 20s phase is, particularly for Gen Z. I don't think anyone at this time would want to settle down at this age, especially after dating for just a few months. Since then, my sister has been bitter towards me. No, I didn't do any of those I told you so things, but I feel she blames me for jinxing her plans. Getting stood up at your wedding is the worst thing that can happen to anyone, and I was consoling her after that. She requested to be left alone with her friends and mom. Except for her friends and mom, I was the only one extra in the room. It was funny though. She could have just asked me to leave. I felt bad about it, but I left without saying anything. I wasn't feeling good, but I realized it must be humiliating for her, and she didn't know how to react. I called her after a week to check on her, but she didn't respond. I texted, but I was left on read, so I didn't bother her after that. A couple of months later, I met her at Mom's place. I asked her how she was doing, and she was like, "Why are you treating me in the way as if I'm destitute, abandoned by a man? I need no man. I'm happy and complete being by myself." I said, "Sure, but I was just checking in on you. You see, I'm not making up my assumptions." She wasn't giving me cold shoulders after her wedding got called off. Last week, we sent out our wedding invitation. I got a call from my sister. I thought it was to congratulate me or something, but she was like, "So, you're getting married in this outdoor location?" I said, "Yes." She was like, "Cool," and then she hung up. I was perplexed until I got a call from my mom on the same evening when she asked me to tone down the wedding because it was hurting my sister. By toning down, she meant canceling the venue and getting married at a church or at the registrar's office with 5 to 6 people from both sides. I told her that we had been planning this for over a year, and she knew everything about the plan. Then why would she suddenly have a problem with it? She said it was because my sister had been stood up at the altar, and it would be insensitive for me to get married so lavishly within a few months. I told her that we had made the payments for most of the wedding stuff, venue, food, decorations, not only the minimum booking amount, but we have paid almost 60% of it. I tried to make her understand that changing the plan would incur a loss. Canceling the venue would be a major loss for us. All the booking charges for the venue, decorations, and caterers are non-refundable. Hearing me whine about the loss, she suggested that I cancel the wedding. I was lost for words. I mean, how could she ask me to cancel the wedding? She said, actually, that's the better way to respect my sister's feelings. She would get enough time to move on from her trauma. She suggested that we push our wedding to next summer. I reminded her that we have already postponed it for our work, and we cannot do it any further. She tried gaslighting the situation and said that if I could push it once for my fiance, I should be able to do it again for my sister if I love her. That made my blood boil, and I said I was not going to cancel anything, and the wedding would happen as planned. She hung up on me. I discussed this with my fiance, and he's of the opinion that maybe my sister is too devastated with her fate, and it must be hard for her to accept that everything is hunky-dory for me while her life is a mess. He said he was okay if I wanted to have a low-key wedding. Discussing this with my fiance has made it worse for me because now I feel he is more empathetic towards my sister, and I'm being the jerk for not considering her feelings. Until now, I was thinking that it was unreasonable demand by my mom to cancel the wedding or tone down the plans, but now I'm thinking if I should reconsider that. I don't know, guys. Have any of you encountered a similar situation? I would love to have a fresh perspective on this. I think your mom and your sister just need to deal with it. Look, you've already postponed your wedding and you've been planning this for a long time, and if you postponed it again, you'd be throwing away a lot of money. So I think you need to do what's right for yourself. Best of luck to you. Now for the updates. Update 1. Hello all, thanks for engaging me with the comments. It really helped me a lot. One of the comments probably a lot of you said is that my mom is narcissistic in asking me to change my wedding plans because it would hurt my sister. I realize you guys are right. It was indeed very mean. I'm not doing anything that should hurt my sister. If she really loved me, there's no better way to put this. She's feeling hurt because she's jealous of me, and that's it. And that's not my problem at all. Some of you asked about my family dynamics, whether my mom has always been this indifferent to me, and whether my sister has always been narcissistic. Well, it's a no. Growing up, I never felt that my mom was too inclined towards my sister. Obviously, every parent has a favorite child subconsciously, but she never made that evident. Yeah, I used to complain that she loved my sister more, but she was never mean or evil to me. I shared a very normal sibling bond with my sister in our early childhood. But during our teens, we got distant. It was not because of any fights, we just evolved as very different people. She was more homely and spent time with mom and aunts and busy in small talks. While I was never interested in all of this, I was busy with my studies, securing scholarships, and hanging out with friends instead of family members. I moved out quite early when I was 18. I got into a college that was far away from home, and since then I've been living on my own. My sister lived with my parents until she was 25. She moved out to live with her first husband. Her husband's house was a few miles away, so she was always at mom's place every other weekend. Dad passed away 5 years ago, and since then, my sister has moved back in with my mom. So yeah, they spent a lot more time together than me, so naturally they have a better bond than me. Nothing much has developed after my last post. Actually, I'm avoiding all conversation with them. Neither am I visiting them nor calling them. My fiance asked me if I was considering my mom's request to postpone the wedding. I said no. The wedding would happen as planned. I'll make an update if anything else develops. Update 2. I hate to say this, but my sister is truly narcissistic, and Mom has been backing her up in her evilness. My mom invited me and my fiance for dinner. I didn't have a very good feeling about it. Before that invitation, she once called me asking about the wedding preparations. When I was giving her the updates, I felt she was not interested to know. It was more like, "Oh, you're still doing that?" Then she interrupted me and said, "Why don't you come home and we can sit down and talk?" I got confused with this entire sit and talk stuff, but she said she meant a general catch-up. I didn't like the way that she was behaving with me, so I didn't go. Last week, she called up my fiance and formally invited us for dinner. He asked her if there was any occasion or if there was anything she wanted to talk about, but she said that there was nothing special. She just wanted to feed us some home-cooked food. He couldn't refuse it, and we had to oblige. Before going there, I told my fiance that my mom or sister requested to cancel the wedding or even asked to make changes to the wedding. He should not oblige. My fiance is a soft-spoken gentleman kind of a person who often gets carried away by others' emotions. I told him not to give in to their demands or promise anything, and if such a situation arises, he should stay quiet and I would handle it. We went there and gladly my sister wasn't around. Everything was going smoothly until Mom started talking about her wedding, how she and Dad got married at a registrar's office, followed by a modest lunch with both of their parents, and how that money helped them in setting up the house and stuff like that. Mom tried manipulating my fiance, saying that we have a long life ahead of us, so we shouldn't waste money on the wedding. I told Mom that we had already planned a very frugal wedding compared to our means. We both earn decently, yet we lead a very simple lifestyle. She went on to say that it's our family tradition to have an intimate wedding because we are simple people and don't believe in showing off. I was like, wait a minute. My sister did have a more than intimate first wedding with 100 plus guests. Mom defended it, saying it was the first wedding of the family and it was Dad who wanted to have it as such. That day I realized how devious my mom was. She started sobbing and said that she was so glad that Dad was able to organize and witness at least one of the weddings of his daughters, and how badly she misses him at family functions. My fiance hugged my mom to console her, and I gestured at him to not get carried away by her tears. He was kind of annoyed by my stiffness. He was almost convinced by my mom and was like, "Sure, yeah, we'll take care of it. You don't worry," and stuff like that. Just then, my sister stepped in. Oh my God, her bitterness has no limits now. She rushed to console Mom, saying that she would always be there for her and she would respect and obey her decisions unlike others. Her sarcasm pushed my buttons to an extent that I could no longer hold back. I told her that I had not done anything evil and that they were targeting me in such a way. This led to a full-blown argument between us where she said I should have canceled my wedding because my sister was going through such a rough phase in life. But I was so insensitive that I was not even ready to curb down the pomp and show. She was attacking me personally, but I still didn't say anything evil. I was just defending myself. When she said that it was stupid to spend so much money on a single event, I gave it back to her. I said indeed it was just one event, yet the most precious day of my life, and unlike others, I plan to have it once in my lifetime. She understood that I was hinting at her 2 weddings. I know I was evil and mean, but dude, I was done with her personal attacks. They had been calling me selfish, pompous, and whatnot for months now. I'm just so done with being a good person and a bigger person. I'm just done now. I'm happy being the evil. If they truly cared about my happiness, they wouldn't have been hurt to see my wedding. They were simply jealous of me. Not to mention my statement made the situation ugly, and my husband had to intervene and drag me out of the house. While leaving, I screamed that the wedding would happen as planned, and if they had a problem, they could skip it. This was yesterday, and I'm still fuming while I write this update. I'll tell you, you can handle all the evil in the world, but the narcissism coming from the family is the hardest to deal with. Update 3. Thanks everyone for backing me up, and sorry for the rambling on my last update. I was fuming with anger and didn't know how to channelize it. But thanks to everyone who PM'd me and engaged me with the comments. That really helped me calm down. Okay, I have quite an update this time. I'm getting married next week and we're going ahead with our original plans. That's the good part. A lot has happened after my last post, but gladly I didn't lose my resolve. After that severe, I would call it a fight with my sister and somewhat with my mom, I was going through a series of emotions from anger to heartbreak. I didn't speak to my fiance for a couple of days because I was not in a condition to have any rational discussion. He wanted to knock some sense into me, but I was just stuck with the thought that my sister couldn't stand to see my happiness and mom was siding with her, ignoring my feelings. When my anger subsided, my fiance talked me through this. He said, let's shift the location to a church and cut down on our relatives. He believed that my sister mostly had a problem with the extended family witnessing the wedding and discussing my sister's fate at the altar. I was convinced about cutting down on the relatives part because I was not that social with aunts and uncles, but I really wanted the venue. Meanwhile, I called up my cousin, who's more of a gossip monger. To be honest, I called her to check to see if my sister had told her anything about the fight, and yes, she did. My sister had been gossiping about me all throughout. She told them that I mocked and insulted her for her broken relationship. She had blown up the entire story over the top. If it was just my sister doing so, it was still understandable, but my mom had also joined her team and had been bad-mouthing me, saying that I was insensitive and arrogant. I told my fiance about this and he stepped out of it. He was like, whatever you decide, I'm not getting into your family turbulence. So we are going with the original plan of garden-themed wedding with 70 guests as decided. As the wedding dates are approaching, I see my sister's narcissism taking new heights. She has been sobbing in front of my aunts about how inconsiderate I am and how I'm hurting her feelings by marrying in her face. Now I fail to understand her problem. I'm not marrying her fiance or her husband that she is creating such a fuss about it. Aunt said that she has tried to console her and asked her to be happy for me. When this tactic didn't work, she had been telling everyone to boycott my wedding so that I'd take a lesson in respecting the feelings of close ones. After I got to know about this, I emailed both of them, uninviting them from the wedding, with the details of how they had been bad-mouthing me and hurting my feelings. I kept some of the key family members like my godmother, aunt, and her husband in the loop so that everyone knows my side of the story. After that email, I saw the tables turning around. I got several phone calls from other family members, including my godmother, assuring me that I was not doing anything wrong by having a wedding of my choice. The reservations were done months ago, and everyone knew about the plans way prior. So what my mom and sister were doing were nothing but pure evil, and I have the right to cut them off from the wedding. Yesterday, I got a long voice note from my sister calling me a spoiled brat and strong-headed for not respecting her feelings. She was like, it was so difficult for her to move on. She had been abandoned by her fiance at her wedding just a few months ago, and instead of consoling her, I was eagerly planning my own wedding and scratching her wounds. She cursed me that I would meet a similar fate as hers or even worse, when my fiance or husband would abandon me or cheat on me with other women. Then I would understand her pain. I was holding up myself all the while, being strong about my decision. But hearing all this broke my heart. I couldn't contemplate how my own sister could curse me like this just a week before my wedding. The week before the wedding is, anyway, such an emotional roller coaster ride for a woman, and getting to hear this from your elder sister is the most horrible thing. People bless their siblings and children at the wedding, but I'm getting cursed. I don't know what I did to deserve this hate. My mom also replied to the first email that she was disowning me and that I should never visit her ever because I didn't care about my family's feelings. This is what happened so far. I'll update the thread if anything happens further. Else send me good wishes for my future. Story 2. Update. When I asked my fiance, 26 male, to please stop cussing me, 25 female, out, he tells me I must want to date Jesus Christ. What advice do y'all have? Original post. I feel a bit stuck in my relationship and I'm unsure of what to do. My fiance and I have been together for a little more than 4 years, and our relationship has been characterized with lots and lots of arguments and fights. The most recent fight that I'm asking advice from is a classic example of nearly every fight that we have. We were speaking on the phone due to us being in a long-distance relationship, and my fiancé stated something about Christianity that I disagreed with. I told him that I disagreed, and that was all I said. He got upset with me and told me that I don't understand the fundamental concept of Christianity. I told him I didn't think so, but I just disagreed with him theologically on this concept. I heard him typing on his phone, and I knew he was about to pull up something that confirmed what he thought was right. I asked him, please don't. I don't want to bicker over this. Please don't look something up just to send it to me. He said, I'm not sending you anything. I said, okay, but please don't look something up to read out loud to me. I barely got that out before he cut me off to read aloud a passage of the Bible he felt proved his idea. After he was done, I told him, I just asked you not to do that, and you cut me off to do that. He said, sorry, but I am right and you are wrong. I said, no, there is no sorry, but I asked you to please not do something, and you went ahead and did it. Then he got angry with me and said that I better explain myself to him right now. I told him I didn't have to do that. And once again, he said, you better explain yourself to me right now. I said, no, I don't have to do that. He said, no, you don't have to, but if you want a happy, healthy, and loving relationship with me, you better explain yourself to me right now. I told him that isn't how it works, and he said, who the F do you think you are? I hung up the phone. This happens every few days, honestly, when he cusses me out like that, and I ask him to please stop, but he doesn't. I hung up the phone because I don't want to hear someone speak to me like that. The next morning, he texted me that he was sorry for his contribution in the fight. I told him thank you for the apology, but I needed some time to think about it because that isn't how I want to be spoken to. And I have told him that in the past multiple times. This isn't a new concept. I've asked him to please stop cussing me out for years. He responds to me a few hours later and tells me that taking some time to think about it was me being evil, manipulative, and abusive. We speak on the phone a few days later, and he continuously cusses me out saying F you and shut the F up whenever I try to say something, and calls me belligerent and a vindictive bitch. Tells me how much he hates me, how much he doesn't want anything to do with me, how he never wants to hear from me again, but he refuses to break up with me out of fear. You can spin this huge narrative about how awful I am. He starts saying F your parents because they have seen his behavior in the past and present and don't want to spend time around him. Boy, that doesn't sound very Christian-like to me. I can barely say anything because if I try to, he will yell, shut the F up, or repeatedly yell, stop, over and over and over to me. He tells me that I make him so mad that this is just how he reacts because I treat him so terribly. He said that me hanging up the phone when he asked me who the F I thought I was the last time I was going to disrespect him. He is mad at me and cussing me out and telling me I treat him terrible and that I am so disrespectful to him because I hung up the phone because he was being disrespectful to me and cussing me out. It makes no sense and it makes me feel crazy, hence why I'm reaching out to strangers on the internet. Simple solution, just break up with him. His therapist he was seeing but no longer does because he moved cities sent him a couples therapy course for us to complete. He looked at it without telling me about it or asking me if I wanted to do it after seeing what it entailed. On his own, he decided he didn't want to do it and blamed me for it, saying, I saw it as a 9-hour-long videos and I didn't want to ask you to do it with me because I didn't want to be rejected by you. This shocked me because he had asked me twice if I wanted to do it before he opened it up and saw what it entailed, and I said yes. Drove 6 hours to have a meeting with him and his therapist, and I continuously asked for couples therapy. When I asked him why he would believe I would say no to the course after he looked at it, he said it's because you refuse to pay for couples therapy. When we were talking about couples therapy, he rushed to sign us up with an online therapist and told me that I had to pay for the entire thing. He told me if we were to do couples therapy, then I would have to pay for the entire thing. I told him that I couldn't afford that, but I would be happy to pay for half. But now he is saying since I won't pay for the whole thing, that it's me that's refusing to do any couples therapy with him, even a free course his therapist gave him. This is absurd to me because he is the one refusing to pay for anything. Our long distance is supposed to end in a month because he moved to a new city and I graduated and got a job that in the new city as well to be with him. He, on the same phone call, starts screaming at me that I better not go to the city with him. I told him that I didn't really have a choice because I signed a contract. The buyout is $18,000, which I can't afford. He starts yelling at me that I can afford it and I just don't want to because I want to go there to just make his life miserable. Wow, that's incredible. Why be a couple? He started uncontrollably yelling at me, "Why are you doing this to me? This is literally absurd to me because this isn't a town I want to move to. This isn't a career move for me, and it's far from my family." I told him this wasn't about me trying to do anything to him. I would never want to make his life miserable. I just can't afford the buyout because I don't have $18,000 sitting around. I just graduated from school and I have student loans. He told me that I should just have my dad pay for it because I'm the rich one. I told him I wasn't going to ask my dad to fork over $18,000, and once again he just started to scream at me that I can't move to this new city, which is out of state, and how can I be such a vindictive bitch? This is just so wild to me. Again, you need to get rid of this guy. I'm so sorry that this is long, I just feel stuck and confused. When I asked him to please not speak to me like that and to listen to me and not talk over me or interrupt me, he tells me that I want someone who is perfect, so I must go date Jesus Christ. He is making me feel unreasonable for being asked not to be cussed at. I just want him to be nice to me. He is making me feel like it's an absurd request. Then he blames me and tells me that I am the master manipulator trying to turn him into a robot with no soul. This really doesn't make any sense to me. I feel very confused, and I would really appreciate any help that I can get. Thank you. Now for the update. Hi everyone, I wanted to give you all an update. I ended my relationship with my fiance today. Good for you. And I blocked his phone number as well as blocked him from all my apps. When I told my family, they said that this was the best news that they could have ever heard. They had been telling me for years that he was abusive, but when 170 plus strangers on the internet comment the same thing my family has been telling me for years, it hits hard. My job let me out of the contract without having to pay the buyout, and they were extremely kind, supportive, and helpful. I will be staying around my support system from now to make sure that I have someone there to remind me of the reality of the relationship whenever I feel the trauma bond kicking in. I want to thank the people who recommended this book, Why Does He Do That by Lundy Bancroft. That book truly was written about my ex-fiance. Over the past few days, I've been reading over everyone's comments on my post whenever I felt like I couldn't break up with him, that I would miss him, or that maybe I was the one with the problem. Thank you for being there for me and for taking the time to help me pull out of that hole. I will be attending therapy to work through the emotional and psychological abuse to make sure I heal fully and move on with my life without sliding back into that relationship. Thank you to everyone who commented. You saved my mental health and possibly my life as well.